Hi and welcome back to Airsoft Action TV. This is our 50th episode and we've got something quite special for you. Today we're here to talk about the LCT PK-331 EBB Recoil Kit. This is absolutely awesome. It makes, as you've seen from the intro footage, makes a hell of a noise, lots of vibration and bounces the gun around all over the place. Though that does cause some problems which we'll go into in a minute. So what is it? It's a new gearbox, a mock gas piston stroke bolt carrier and a new recoil spring which go in, and as I said, it causes an awful lot of vibration, noise and all sorts of fun. However, you are limited in which riffs it can go into. So this is an LCT TK104 with a fixed stock tube, and this kit is rear wired, so it goes back into the stock tube, and the batch will either go into the stock tube or into a full stock AK if you've got one of those, or into the crane stock that I've got on this one. It will not go, however, into a riff or an AEG like this LCT AKS74 where there is no fixed stock or stock tube. LCT do make a part for this which is a kind of folding stock tube which will allow you to fit it, but if you want to kind of keep the authentic 70s 80s outline of something like this, you just won't be able to do it. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. So one more thing I want to talk about is I had to import this kit from Hong Kong as there isn't a British version out yet. If you're in the UK, it may well be worth waiting until someone like Fire Support brings in the kit to a British spec. This, when I got it, was firing a bit hot and I've already had to change the spring. So just be warned, if you're gonna import one from Hong Kong, it may well be hot. You're better off waiting for the UK versions to come in. So the PK-331 is a kit, which means you'll need to do the installation yourself. Now, if you're not entirely confident with messing around in the innards of an AEG, AATV recommend that you use a gun tech. If you are happy, fair enough. Also, you need to bear in mind that this may well completely void your warranty on any new gun that you've got. Although it makes an awful lot of noise, there are some problems that we need to talk about. So this is an older LCT AK, I think it's a Gen 1. It's been used and abused and taken apart by me quite a lot, and on this riff the front end has a tendency to walk off, and also some of the other bolts and screws have fallen out. So on this one I've got loads of blue Loctite on it to hold it together. If you're using a completely new riff you may not need to. Unfortunately for this one this is the case. Now what we need to do is I need to use this for another month, 6 weeks, play a few games and see if the blue Loctite holds. And if that's not a problem, in which case we think it's probably a bit more suited to general use. So we think at AATV, because of the slightly exuberant nature of it, that it's best suited for immersion. So we're talking about games like mil sims, battle sims, film sims. We're having a really loud, clacky AK is only going to kind of add to the immersion for everyone playing. That's yourself and the people you're pointing the riff at. Again, we're not sure if it's suitable for skirmishes yet. We'll report back as soon as we know, and we also think it's best for experienced users that are happy taking apart and maintaining their riffs themselves. If you're not one of those people, this may not be the kit for you. However, I'm not going to stop your fun. It is awesome. Coming up, I've got a full assembly footage of putting this into this gun. Great, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video, and we'll see you next time. This is the LCT PK-331 EBB kit as you'll get it in its plastic wrap. So it consists of a complete new gearbox and motor, a recoil spring and a mock gas piston and bolt carrier. You'll also get some fire selector parts and a motor screw. So let's have a closer look. This is the mock gas piston and bolt carrier. It's pretty much the same as the LCT mock gas piston kit that they do. This is made of cast steel with a steel tang on the end. This is the channel that the recoil kit actually runs in, and it's been welded into place. Really sturdy. This is the recoil spring that you get. This is very like a real one, almost down to the 2-part. And this is the original spring guide that you get, which just holds the little flappy bolt cover in place. You can see it's much more substantial, and this is what drives the recoil kit itself going forward. Of course, the most important bit is the gearbox and motor. This one's a bit tatty as it's already been in and out of the gun a couple of times as a result of trying to do this video. One of the most interesting bits is there's a whole new motor in this, and it looks really high end with some CNC bits, and this kit needs a big pokey motor in order to drive it properly, because it's got to pull both the mainspring of the AEG back and the recoil spring back as well. Here you can see the little hook which pulls the gas piston back and forward. Put them together. See that hook pulls that tang back, and the recoil kit moves back and forward. Now this is wired to the rear, as we discussed in the intro. Terminates in a mini Tamiya kit, and it's got these little bullet connectors halfway down, which help feeding the recoil kit wires into some tight spaces. So this is the basic installation. I've already got the gearbox installed, and the gas piston's tab needs to be inserted into the slot at the rear of the receiver. I have to turn mine to the right a little bit in order to clear it past the first tab, and you'll probably have to do the same. My receiver's quite tight, yours probably won't be as much. Click it down over the hook on the top of the gearbox, check that it's free and able to slide back and forward. If so, you can then put the recoil spring into the hole in the back of the gas piston and clip it into place. Check function. Make sure that nothing's binding or moving as it shouldn't be. This one's great and ready to roll. Okay, so this is the complete assemble. My LCT AK is completely disassembled at this point. I'm down to the bare receiver, as you can see. This one's had a bit of abuse because it's been sprayed and unsprayed and all sorts. So the first thing we're going to do is put the fire selector pieces back where they should be. I'm just going to check function, make sure it's working correctly at both ends of the travel. Then I tend to leave my thumb over the centre boss to make sure it doesn't fall out when I'm installing it into the gearbox. So this is how I arrange the wires. I run the two wires just across along the top of the selector plate and tuck the wires in down behind. So here I'm feeding the wires through the hole in the back of the lower receiver and then gently sliding the gearbox into place. It's a bit fiddly. I had to wiggle it around a bit and finally fit the wires off camera to get them underneath the left hand side of the receiver rail. Make sure all the time that your wires are free and aren't trapped. Here I'm just feeding, so got the gearbox lifted up a bit and I'm just feeding the wires underneath the rail on the left hand side of the lower receiver, carefully tucking the wires underneath. The wires are still in that place on the top of the selector plate, just about right. Slide it in and then finally just tuck the end of the wire just under the rail there. Brilliant. Okay, so I've put the grip on just to keep the gearbox in place while I'm putting the rear stock tube on. You don't have to do this, but it's just a bit easier. So I need to reconnect the back half of the battery wires. And then I'll feed them down the stock tube. This stage will differ depending on whether you've got like a wooden full stock or a plastic full stock or a stock tube. But they all are the same in that you need to make sure that you don't trap the wires when you're installing your stock. In this case there's a grub screw which holds the QD selectors on, and I'm just making sure that the wires are on the left hand side, so when I put the grub screw into place it doesn't trap the wires. I have made this mistake on my first installation. There you go, and I'm just checking again, holding the wires against the left hand side and making sure I don't trap any of them underneath the grub screw. All good. Lever the stock into place. And put the screw in to hold it shut. Great, so that's the stock on. The next thing I'm going to do is put the fire selector in place. I find this easier to do with the grip off, so the gearbox can move slightly inside the receiver. I'm not going to fully tighten the fire selector screw down now. I would normally do this with a set of pliers with the jaws taped so I don't mark it off too much. I've also, on my riff at this current time, that screw I've got some blue Loctite on to hold in place to stop the vibrations. And now finally put the grip back on again, this time just tucking the wires away to make sure they're not trapped. This AK has an LCT saw grip on. I find it much more comfortable with my hands, but there's no different to any LCT you'll be using. And just spin on while I quickly tighten the grip down. And that's probably the hardest bit done. Once you've got the gearbox in, you're kind of home. So now the inner barrel through the hole the front of the receiver, put it back into place, and now putting the front end of the gun on. The black electrical tape you can see on the barrel is a little spacer to stop the barrel vibrating inside the gun. So here's the two grub screws. I had to use blue Loctite on mine. Your mileage may vary depending on how old your gun is, I don't know. Currently it's a recommend from me though, but as all of the things in this tutorial, it's really up to you. And then do the grub screws up. So I tend to hold the gun against my body and pull back to make sure that the foregrip and front end is on nice and tightly and in the correct position. It's always a pain doing that second one up. I wish LCT would put a hole above it like they do for the front one. Great stuff. Looking good now. So now we'll put the gas tube on. Just get the release to about the right place. It should snap down nice and easily. Put the lever back. Now we need to attach the hop-up screws. Again, for me, I had to use a little bit of blue Loctite in order to stop these vibrating out. And that should be enough to hold them nicely. Then as before, gas piston in, rotate it to get under the tab at the rear of the low receiver. So I've got a bit of rotating it to the right, pushing it under the tab, and then pressure to push it forward. Again, your receiver may be looser than mine. Mine's fairly tight at this point, but once you're past that, super easy. Click it down over the hook again, and then it's time for the recoil spring. It looks so close to a real AK, it's awesome. It's one of the nicest things about this kit. Check function. Last couple of bits. Rear sight. Put the blade in. I tend to put the actual sight in upside down. Just find it easier to locate it. And then with a little twist at the end. And then finally the top cover. The recoil spring is stiffer than the release button you'll be used to. I found I kind of have to line it up properly and then give it that whack that you see on YouTube and in the movies for putting top covers back onto AKs. Bong! And we're on. Check function again. back on safe. Thanks for watching. There you go. I really hope you enjoy this product. I've had a lot of fun using it.